I'm Nick.
And I'm Ricky.
And welcome to the Demand Gen Daily Podcast. All right, before we get into it, like, subscribe, leave us your questions. We will answer your questions. DM them to us. Do what you need to do. Last section of questions to ask an agency, and we're going to be talking about quality control. So quality control takes two different and distinct areas into consideration. One, quality control around brand, and then quality control around KPIs and metrics, so results. So we're going to kick this off with looking at the brand side. So how is my brand standards going to be maintained? Like, how are you going to speak in my voice? Like, these are those questions that you want to be asking an agency. So how do you define quality control when it comes to my brand? What is your process to ensure that my brand is always represented accurately and in the way we want? That's always the first question. They're going to give you an answer, and a great agency will always ask for your brand guidelines. So first of all, they should be asking you, okay, yeah, great question. Do you have brand guidelines somewhere, anywhere? We don't mind if they're maybe outdated, because brand guidelines documents often sit on a shelf, but this is the time to use them. Maybe they need to be refreshed a little and touched up. That's great. Use the brand guidelines. So if none exist, they should be offering you like mood board creation or something along those lines. As well,
it could be like a documentation of the persona or the voice.
Exactly. So it's like, what's the UVP? What's the brand voice? You have a brand pyramid somewhere along the lines. And if you have nothing, they might just create like a brand pyramid and some mood boards, get you to sign off on those, so there's clear alignment for the future. And this might trigger things like, oh, maybe we need a brand strategy. We don't really have anything at all. Just by like running with it and refining it ad hoc. Some like a good agency is going to ask you, okay, how can we get this situated? Because one of the things that that is really time consuming, most clients don't understand, is getting sign-offs on absolutely everything is not an effective use of resources for either party. Are they necessary at the beginning of an engagement when the agency is learning more about you? Yes. However, by the second or third month, if the deliverables are not primarily creative, there should be no need for, because they should understand your brand guidelines really well. They should understand your tone really well. And they should just be out there like making changes as needed to generate the best results as fast as possible.
Yeah. And that being said, I will say that not every brand guideline is on the same level. You've got some amazing brand guidelines and you've got some very basic brand guidelines. If you're running into a situation where maybe there's more mistakes than you would like, maybe it's not quite an alignment that you're looking for, go back to the brand guidelines, because it could be that there needs to be additional information added to those brand guidelines to make sure that anyone who reviews them is very clear on what the brand is.
Also, from like maybe a more operational side, you should be asking a follow-up question around, okay, if there is a sign-up process and I'm reviewing them as the client, what is the process for revisions internally within the agency? And the answer that you're really looking for is that all of the notes based on a meeting or a presentation are basically then written down. Those notes then need to go to you, the client, for sign off. It's like, hey, based on our meeting, these are the list of changes. You should then be getting those as clients signing off. Then those notes need to be copy pasted into some sort of project management system that the agency will have, go directly to the designer or the copywriter, etc. Then they will take those notes, make those amendments, bring that new version, and then present that version again to you for sign off. That's ideally what you're looking for in terms of a revision process. But if an agency is very advanced, they will also have guidelines for you on how to give creative feedback. So that is also part of like onboarding. They'll make it very clear, this is how you interact to get the most bang for your buck in terms of any kind of creative deliverables. They'll tell you this is how the feedback should be positioned for maximum return. Then after that, so that's the brand side. So on the other side, it's the more quantitative side. What metrics are we covering, right? So this is the question. What KPIs and metrics will you be reporting on in our weekly, monthly meetings? What do those look like, or quarterly or annually, right? These should be unique to your type of business in terms of what your goals are. And It also has to do with your level of digital maturity. But generally, I would say that you always want to look at a couple of key KPIs that matter to you, and also some metrics. So like at least one or more metrics that you're measuring, right? If it's all KPIs, again, that's a red flag. If they're just website visitors, click-through rate, all of these things, and there isn't some kind of metric where you're measuring money, that is a huge red flag, because you always want to keep at least one key number as a metric.
And for the metrics, you really want something where if that metric increases, it's literally moving your business forward, right? It's increasing your revenue. It's moving you forward in the direction of your target. So make sure you carefully pick your metrics. And when it comes to the KPIs, you want those KPIs to be specifically not just related to your business, but also in alignment to the metrics. Because what you want to be seeing is, if you're not seeing the metrics yet, but what you're getting is the KPIs, if you continue to move in the right direction with the KPIs, then it basically guarantees that you will be getting the metrics, right? So you have to have that relationship, because the KPI is the leading indicator of what's going to happen, which is the metric. But if you don't have that relationship and they're completely unrelated to each other, this is a situation where you could get into where you're watching the KPIs and it's, oh, this looks great, we're getting more website visitors, oh, we're getting more engagement. And guess what? It's not related to your metrics, so you're never going to get the results you're hoping for.
Exactly. So one of the key things that I always tell people, like, look, if it's e-commerce, it's easy. You're measuring ROAS, you're measuring things. Like, if you're in e-commerce, you shouldn't just be measuring ROAS. You should be measuring lifetime value of client. Is that going up? Is the frequency of purchase on a per client basis going up? You want to look at those lifetime value elements. And then beyond ROAS, even looking at overall customer acquisition costs. So you can hopefully generate some sort of LTV to CAC ratio. That would be ideal. Customer acquisition cost payback period, right? For e-commerce, great metric to have at your disposal. If you're not e-commerce, if you're dealing more in, hey, I need some lead gen, things like this, it's really going to be on you, the company, and as a client, to really get that sales data back in the hands of the agency, so that they can see, where did this come from? Did this come from like leads? Does this come from like a website? Is this organic? Maybe they're doing some SEO for you. Maybe it's emails. So they need that CRM data back so that they can understand very clearly where things are coming from. Again, e-com, really easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And we help a ton of B2B businesses. And in a lot of cases, some of them do have CRMs, but a lot of them don't have a full integration between the sales process, the CRM, and what's happening on the marketing side. So if that integration doesn't exist, as Nick was saying, this is where you need to bring those systems together. Try to get them as close as have them provide data on their end, and then you provide some data on your end and see how close you can get it to match up. But that's your best option if you can't integrate those systems fully.
Absolutely. All right, so this is our last episode on agency questions. If you haven't checked out the previous episodes, I encourage you, please go back and check those out. If you're in the market for an agency, also get in touch with us. We do have a document that walks you through these questions one by one. So if you go to the Demand Gen Daily podcast website, we'll have a link in there for you to download this PDF that we're kind of here step by step. All right, thank you so much. Until next time.